Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out and special thanks to the channel members. The manhwa starts by showing us a peaceful city 249 years ago. All of the residents are looking up, and they all have the same expression, full of absolute horror they witnessed, as a huge dimensional gate opened in the skies. And then the beings descended that would later be called demons. They came down in droves, swarming out of the gate. After descending, they declared that they were invading mankind, and that marked the beginning of the invasions of demons. Realizing how dear the situation was, the Orthodox Alliance formed the Orthodox Heaven Demon Extermination Corporation, and declared that they would be subjugating the demons. 3 days later, they ran into the Demon Corporation in Anhui and were all wiped out by a single enemy. 1 year later, half of the people in the Central Plains were slaughtered. The Orthodox and unorthodox sects worked together to form the last line of resistance in Sichuan. As the unorthodox and orthodox fought side by side, dealing with as many demons as they could, the battle lasted over half a month, and 90% of the resistance army was killed. The Central Plains were finally wiped out. The remaining survivors became slaves and were dragged to the demon realm. The man telling the story says he too was dragged and captured there. After 5 years, he who was unable to use energy from birth was categorized as a rare species and became an experiment. Through these various experiments, and even brainwashing, he became a part of the demon realm's subjugation army. After decades had passed, he invaded other dimensions and carried out slaughter. He killed, and killed, and killed. After 75 years of murder, he became a slave soldier and was recognized for his contributions, and became a commander among the demons. 120 years after, he was promoted to a commander. We see him take off his mask as he looks up in the sky, and he says that he finally found out about that. As a giant eye peers down at him, he wasted 50 years trying to find the conditions and methods to manifest it, and 65 years after that, he started the rebellion he had meticulously planned for. 1 week after the rebellion started, we are now in the present. We see a castle off in the distance and soldiers all dead on the floor, some demons, and some being part of this man's rebellion. The man is coughing up blood as he stands before a fire demon that is staring down at him. The man says the rebellion has failed. As the fire demon says it was a disappointment. He risked all of the contributions he had accumulated just for rebellion to this level. This is the demon king, Taran. He calls the man Schwit von Grindel. The man gets pissed, gritting his teeth, saying not to call him by that name, as his name is Sabigong. Taran says he really doesn't understand. He's observed humans like him all this time. All the abilities and talents they possessed are measly. He always had a tenacious obsession with surviving regardless of the situation, and that's his only strength. But he wonders why he decided to act so recklessly after all this time. Bigong says that it's because he had to experience it at least once. In order to gain a definite victory the next time they fight, he has no choice but to fight him at least once. Taran says that sounds pretty interesting, but it's also a foolish way of thinking, asking if he thought he'd give him a second chance, as he's going to die here today. Bigong says that he will not be killed by him. As he readies himself, he stabs into his own chest. With a smile on his face, Taran is surprised. Bigong starts screaming as he clenches his teeth, and he tightens the grip in his palm, then starts spinning his heart with his bare hands. Magic circles begin to form in the sky, creating a giant purple beam that shatters through the Demon King's palace directly onto Bigong. Taran says that this is time regression. It's the authority of Nuzarun, an ancient evil god, and he sees the reason why he endured his defeat and humiliation quietly for 200 years. It was all for this. Bigong tells him to just wait and see, as the next time around, he will prepare even more thoroughly and beat the shit out of him, and he and all of his cursed demons will die. He laughs, saying that he is looking forward to that, as he is the only human he has ever acknowledged. Back to the Central Plains of Murim, a purple lightning strikes one of the pavilions, and in the upstairs attic, we see a younger Bigong. As he slowly opens his eyes, we learn that there is only 10 years left until the demons invade. The area we are in is the Orthodox Alliance's Martial Arts Academy, specifically the Dragon Spring Academy. As the roof is being repaired, they say they can't believe lightning struck out of nowhere, and it was powerful enough to destroy the training grounds roof, and they are relieved that only that loser got injured. The other worker asks who he means, and he says that it was the vice instructor who was an orphan that physician Jin Beck brought back. They say he was the one who got struck by lightning a few days back. The other guy says he understands now, and it's the martial arts instructor who can't use internal energy, and from what he heard, he wasn't badly injured. His coworker laughs, saying that it would have been better if he was though, because today is his public execution. We see a man say, "Starting now, the duel for the spear assistant instructor position of the Dragon Spring Academy will officially begin." On one side, they have the current assistant instructor, who is none other than Big Ong, and his opponent is someone that is recommended for the position, the invincible divine spear, Maeng Sundeok. There is a request to verify Big Ong's abilities, so this duel will determine who should hold the position, and then both of them are to fight with their honor as martial artists on the line. Sundeok laughs, saying that Big Ong seems better than he expected. From what he heard, he got struck out of nowhere by lightning, and he thought he was making up some excuse to avoid fighting him. Sundeok's martial arts is called the Bull Demon Spear Art, and he says that since he still appeared, he'll put an end to this quickly on the account of his bravery, or he could just surrender. Big Ong tells him in the very far future, there was an instructor of a certain martial arts academy who couldn't use internal energy. Unfortunately, that was because he was born with a trait, but it can't be helped. He was naturally looked down on by others. In the end, that incompetent instructor who was known as the shame of the academy suffered a horrible defeat in a public duel. He got his instructor position stolen and was left to do menial jobs and errands, and suffered endlessly. Sundeok asks what the hell he's yapping about, and Big Ong says he just wants to sum it up. He's waited a long-ass time for this, and he's been dreaming about the day he could beat his ugly ass up. Sundeok gets pissed, asking why he's acting so arrogant, and that he was going to let him keep some of his pride, since he's an instructor, and it's time for him to pay for that arrogant mouth of his. As he uses his Bull Demon Spear arts and charges forward, his eyes full of rage just like a bull's would be, he uses the first form, the ferocious bull charge. He thrusts towards Big Ong, but he's immediately surprised, and Sundeok says that he was expecting to feel a certain sensation on his spear, but instead there's nothing there. Big Ong is now behind him, saying that while that looked decent, he needs to have it land for it to do anything. In a panic, he swings backwards, and Big Ong leaps up over it. He then lands off to the other side of the arena, and Sundeok's already looking a little gassed out. He wonders what's going on, asking how his spear art that has been trained for decades was dodged so easily. He was told Big Ong was weak, but this is different from what he's heard. Big Ong says that was so slow, asking how anybody could teach with their skills being so shit. Sundeok thinks that it must have just been luck, and starts to run in, breaking the ground beneath him, and starts to leap up in the air directly over Big Ong. Sundeok tells him to die, as he's now using the fourth form, the falling bull strike. Big Ong looks up at him and tightens the grip on his spear, and starts twirling it around him on both sides. Before getting into his stance, I guess that was all for show. As he readies himself, Sundeok says there's no way that half-assed technique will block him, but instead, Big Ong stretches out his hand and starts using magic to summon a fireball. Sundeok asks what the hell that is, and this is some Glock Jitsu type martial arts. As the explosion creates a shockwave throughout the entire arena, everybody looks horrified by what they see. Sundeok starts screaming because of the fire, and the instructor says the duel is over, and the victor is none other than Big Ong. They start pouring water onto him to put him out. Big Ong says he was captured alive by the demons, and he was dragged to the demon realm and survived however he could for centuries. In the process of that, he realized something very important, and that his high-level magic is broken as hell, and he asked them what they think of his heat-yang arts, and that this martial art is known as the fireball, and another thing is that high-level magic is distinguishable from martial arts. They start to carry Sundeok out on a stretcher, and Big Ong waves by, saying that he left his ass on the air fryer for too long. The other students ask if that was really martial arts, saying that he called it the heat-yang finger arts. The elders of the academy have mixed expressions, with one of them being absolutely pissed, but they congratulate Big Ong on staying the instructor, and they say they might have won this fight. However, they thought he could not use internal energy. He smiles, saying that it was just a stroke of luck. They ask what he means, and he says a few days ago, he ate some herb that he had never seen before on a walk, then suddenly he could use internal energy. He goes to say thankfully he has a lot now, but now they ask if they're really meant to buy that shit, and that he should stop spouting nonsense to the elders, saying this is an insult to all of them. Big Ong says it's their choice to believe him or not, asking why it matters. He asks if he cheated in the duel, saying it was a fight for the position of teaching spearmanship, but there was no rule to fight using only spears. He doesn't know why he has to be interrogated like this when he won fair and square. The elder gets pissed, and another one calms him down, saying that he's too worked up, and Big Ong's right, he won this fight. But Big Ong raises his hand, saying that he's sorry to interrupt, but since everybody's here, he would like to make a request. He officially requests for a test to be promoted to an official instructor instead. Later that day, as he's walking down the halls, the other people in the academy are looking at him and start gossiping about how he was the one from the duel. Big Ong looks up, saying that the Dragon Spring Academy is one of the many martial training halls set up by the Orthodox Alliance to prevent hardship in the Jonghu Murim. Its purpose is to raise martial artists who will become the pillars of the Orthodox Alliance in the future. They take in children between the ages of 15 and 18. The instructors are composed of martial masters from the Orthodox Alliance, and they are divided into assistant instructors and senior instructors. The assistant instructors are more assistants than they are instructors. The instructor is the most important person in the organization. A man then asks what happened, and Big Ong freezes up. Big Ong glances behind, and the old man asks how he's suddenly able to use internal energy, wondering what he has done. This is the recovering body pavilion master, the one who brought him here, Beck. He's not an instructor, but a physician who takes care of patients. Big Ong says he already said it was a stroke of luck, and Beck yells, saying that's nonsense. He knows that he's treated him for a long time since the day he learned that he could not use internal energy. He has tried every method possible to fix him. His voice starts to break, and he falls to his knees, saying that if it was something that could be fixed so easily, then how useless of a physician is he? He knows better than anyone that he was hated by others because of that, and he's been treated like a fool. He's too ashamed to face him now, and he starts apologizing like crazy, bawling his eyes out. Big Ong smiles, saying that he hasn't changed at all, and this is pretty much his parent. 542 years ago, but technically, it's only 15 from where he is now. He was the person who ran into flames to save a dying child amidst a bandit ambush. He was also the one who ended up losing his own life trying to save others on that day too, when they got attacked. However, this time, he will do his best. He says this time he'll make sure he won't die. He then calls out to Beck again and grabs his hands, saying that he doesn't need to blame himself and not to worry about him. Beck looks up with hope in his eyes, and Big Ong tells him just to trust him, as he'll resolve all their problems from now on. Later that night, Big Ong's looking up at the moon and holds his hand up, as a blue energy starts to coat it. A magic circle forms at the tip, and he says when he regressed, he lost over 90% of his mana. The best he can muster up right now is about the 4th circle, and it sure is disappointing. It had taken him centuries to reach the 8th circle. The only thing he has to be grateful for is he is now back in the present, no longer having to experience that hell, and he will change a different future. The history of Murim has been reversed, and the demons have yet to invade. However, the key word is yet. Exactly 10 years from now, the demons will begin invading, and when that happens, the Jonghu Murim will fall again. However, this time will be different. He still has his memories from over 300 years, on the information of the demon army, such as the kind of magic they use, the artifacts and weapons they prepared for the invasion, and most importantly, about their leader and how to take him down. Someone knocks on his door, and Beck asks if he's here. Big Ong says yes, asking what it is. He says that the Vice Academy Master, Chun Samyung, is looking for him. This is the elder who was pissed. Big Ong asks again if he means right now, and why he asked Beck to deliver the message. Beck says he doesn't mind, and he's more worried about Big Ong. He thinks it's about his request for a promotion, and he should watch out. He's sure the test will be hard, and since Sundiak, the person Samyung recommended, lost like that, he definitely has ill will towards him. He then wonders why he suddenly decided to become an official instructor. Big Ong smiles while putting on his coat, saying that this is the first step to fixing the academy. Later that night, he heads out, saying once upon a time, the Dragon Spring Academy was renowned enough to be considered the best out of the top 3 Orthodox martial academies. However, 2 years ago, the Academy Master, as well as one of the top 10 martial masters, suddenly went missing. The Academy searched for him for 2 years to no avail, as it was hard to replace someone as skilled as him. The Dragon Spring Academy lost their fame as a result of the failure. But that's not all. As he enters a room, Samyeong says that he wants to check for the final time, asking if he's serious about his request for a promotion. This is the senior director for the Blades, and Big Ong says this piece of shit is the accelerant of the fall of their academy. The day the demons invaded, we see Big Ong looking horrified as he grabbed onto his shoulder. Great ruptures opened up from all sides, and monsters that were never seen before began killing people left and right. It marked the beginning of the invasion of the otherworldly species that they came to call the demon race. The young disciples of the Dragon Spring Academy were ruthlessly killed by these monsters. And on that day, he vividly recalls turning around, watching Samyeong and this other dude named Daeung running off, carrying goods they stole from the academy. If he had just reported the situation and activated the defense system in the academy, it could have prevented so many deaths, and he can still recall the screams of all those disciples that were sacrificed that day, though that is yet to happen, because he is in the past. But he will never forget his disgusting, hypocritical face, and in a cold tone, he asks why he called him here. Daeung says that he's going to tell him about the test, for him to become a senior instructor. It's to raid the demonic night stronghold. Big Ong is surprised, asking if they mean the bandits in the mountain behind them. Samyeong says yes, he needs to kill them all, that is his test. The demonic night stronghold is a group of bandits located in the old sacred mountain situated not far from their academy. But due to reports of frequent damage caused by this bandit group, there is now an order to raid them for the sake of the civilians. It was given by none other than Samyeong. Big Ong says alright then, asking what this has to do with being an instructor. Samyeong says it's obvious that this concerns the most basic of requirements for an instructor. Senior instructors are the main force of their academy after all. All of the senior instructors of the academy are considered martial masters, and they have all been officially recognized by the Orthodox Alliance. The archery instructor is Yoon Byuk, and the sword instructor is named Seng Pilgi. Samyeong continues, saying they have all accomplished great things such as eliminating evil demonic martial artists. Big Ong says he gets it, asking how long he has to complete it. Daeung gets pissed, asking why he's behaving so rudely, calling him arrogant. Samyeong, though, manages to remain calm, saying he has exactly 2 weeks. If he's even late by a day, he will forever lose his chance at a promotion. Big Ong laughs, asking if they really think it'll take that long, and he'll return in 3 days. And they should make sure they're here. Daeung is pissed. But Samyeong doesn't say anything, and after he leaves, Daeung asks if he's really going to promote this arrogant shit, saying that if he succeeds, they'll be on the same level. Samyeong tells him there's no need to worry, as their little assistant will never come back from this. Daeung asks what he means, and while Big Ong is using a spell called haste, he says that Samyeong is extremely fake, and he knows what he's plotting. The demonic night stronghold started during this period, but also the Green Forest Alliance began to rise in fame too, meaning, people didn't know much about them. At this moment, it is not a big organization, but there is a problem. Daeung looks surprised, asking if he's serious, and if the head of the stronghold is a peak realm martial master. Samyeong says the demonic night stronghold master named Akaegjium is also no ordinary band leader. Even the Orthodox Alliance thinks that he's a former leader of an unorthodox sect called the Heaven-Destroying Sect. People think he was killed a few years ago, but he actually managed to survive. He tracked down and killed every single one of the traitors. Because of how cruel his revenge was, even the unorthodox Murim put out a bounty for his head, and he's been hiding, and came here recently. Daeung asks how he knows all of this. Samyeong asks why that's important. While Big Ong was impressive during the duel, it was only possible because he had been hiding his true skills. However, this test is a real situation, it's not a duel, and he definitely won't make it back alive. While Big Ong is running, he then starts to use a levitation spell. He says that if Jiam is just as he remembers, fourth circle magic is not enough to defeat him, and the solution is simple. He arrives at a nearby rock, saying that he's here. He descends down, saying that he's going to increase his mana and level up his circle. His experience in knowledge and magic is already 8th circle after all. He starts to use search on his eyes, scanning to find a nearby cave, and he says it looks normal. But it's actually a lot more than that. As he puts his finger through a rock, we see it's actually a barrier. He smiles, saying this is made of mana, and he's in the right place. Nobody could have ever imagined that there were multiple places like this in the Central Plains, hidden behind mana barriers. He sees a mana stone in the cave, and he says he knew that it would be inside of here. The demons are very intelligent, creatures to the other world that repeatedly invade and conquer other dimensions. This was made possible because of the dimensional travel technology. However, there is one fatal flaw. In the process of going through the portal, the time taken for a living being and non-living being differs way too much. Even the demons could not fix this problem. In the end, this is the solution they came up with. In the worlds they planned to invade, they secretly planted equipment that would allow them to invade in the future. This mana stone is the source of their power, and it recovers their mana. It is useless for someone from the Central Plains, since they cannot use it, but that's not the case for him, because he has now returned from being a demonic general for countless years. As he starts absorbing it, we see on the outside of the cave, he shatters through the roof because of his mana increasing. We see some bandits walking, and Jiam is in the back of them. They say that it doesn't seem like anything is amiss, and Jiam asks if they're really saying that he made a mistake. He says not at all, and Jiam tells them to shut up and search thoroughly, as he definitely felt an explosion of energy here earlier today. He says that losers like them would never know. But then they hear clapping, and they all turn. Big Ong says he really knew he was a peak realm martial master, and he believed in him. Jiam asks who he is, and Big Ong glares down at him, saying that if he really wants to know, he'll tell him. And he smiles, saying that he is an instructor of the Dragon Spring Academy. The bandits wonder what an instructor from the academy is doing here. As Jiam tells them to all shut the hell up, and if he's speaking the truth, that means he's trying to say that he was the cause of that great energy explosion earlier. Big Ong smiles, asking what if he was. Right after he says this, Jiam launches an attack straight at his head. It causes an explosion, breaking the tree that he was sitting on. Jiam says if that's the case, he's going to kill him because that's why he's here. Big Ong asks if that's really the case, which surprises Jiam, since he's still alive, but also, Big Ong unleashes his own counterattack towards him. Jiam manages to block it. As we see that Big Ong sent it with his hand. In that same time frame, he uses something called Mana Blade and decapitates every single one of the bandits between him and Jiam in an instant. That's crazy. Jiam's heart sinks, and Big Ong says it sure is a coincidence. As he uses another spell called Trice to pull back his blade towards him, he says that he came to kill him too. Who knew magic inside of a Murim world would be so damn cool? Immediately, they charge in towards one another, colliding blades. Big Ong tells him that he better avenge his subordinates. Jiam asks him who the hell he is. Big Ong pushes him back, creating some distance between the two of them. But Big Ong doesn't stop there, as he immediately follows up with 2 counters, pushing Jiam to be on the defensive. He then follows up with 4 more rapid attacks, leaving Jiam unable to even counter. This continues, but somehow Jiam manages to get the upper hand, and he's the one pushing Big Ong back this time as they're kind of ebbing and flowing, but that's only how it's meant to seem. Big Ong says he already told him that he's an instructor at the academy. Jiam though is in complete disbelief as he says that this bastard is not struggling against him in the slightest, as if he's being toyed with. Jiam starts to grit his teeth and screams, letting out a red aura. Big Ong distances himself, and this is the heaven-destroying sect Hedgeman Divine Arts, called Core Release. Jiam, now shooting one hell of an aura from his eyes, asks how dare he make him use this power on him. And he asks him if he even knows what kind of power this is. After he was thrown off a cliff by traitors, he had collected all this innate core energy, dreaming of revenge. Big Ong says who the hell asked, making Jiam taken aback. Big Ong says he really doesn't care about the lore of some useless villain, as he's using a spell called Freezing Wave to stop Jiam from moving. Jiam looks down, confused, and then Big Ong continues, following it up with something called Astral Chain. 2 magic circles appear beside Jiam's head, and from the vortex, chains begin shooting out, wrapping around both of Jiam's wrists, pulling him up into the air. Jiam screams and realizes that he can't break free because they're too tight. Big Ong tells him that struggling is futile. The moment it touches him, it sucks away all of his internal energy, and it was a spell especially designed to take down martial artists. Jiam starts absolutely tweaking, asking where he learned such sorcery and if he's from the demonic cult. Big Ong says it's magic, not sorcery, but he understands how a stupid bandit can't understand. Jiam gets pissed and says that he refuses to die in a place like this. Big Ong asks if he's full of regrets. And he says of course he is. He is yet to get his revenge on those bastards who manipulated his subordinates when he was still in the heaven-destroying sect. The reason he was working with these disgusting Orthodox Alliance guys, and the reason he was cooped up in this mountain recovering his power, was so he could get revenge, every single bit of it. Big Ong starts clapping and sarcastically says wow, he can't believe he was so determined, and that's how revenge should be, slowly, thoroughly, without giving up. Jiam asks if he's really mocking him, saying that he's just some kid who grew up comfortably, so he wouldn't know any of this. Big Ong immediately releases killing intent, asking him if he really thinks that's the case. Jiam gets scared, asking what the hell is wrong with this guy, saying that he's definitely not some ordinary dude, and it seems like something is fundamentally wrong with him. Big Ong palms his head like a basketball, saying that he's going to let him experience it too. The hell that he went through for 200 years. As he's glaring down at him, Jiam then looks up and is in an unfamiliar landscape. He wonders where the hell he is, and what that crazy bastard just did to him. A giant demon looms overhead, just like the one we saw come from the rift. Jiam's heart starts to sink. Immediately, it's followed by massive explosions all over, and he's taken through the memories of the war, the rebellion, even back when he was a test subject being tortured on, when he met that giant thing in the sky, and even when he stood before Tehran. Jiam starts to let out a blood-curdling scream as he squeezes his face and looks up in absolute horror. As his mind is being completely broken, Big Ong looks down at him, and he asks him how that is, because that's the future he will experience in 10 years. Jiam shakily raises his hand before squeezing Big Ong's legs, and starts saying kill over and over. Big Ong looks down as Jiam's eyes fill with tears. He begs for him to end his life, saying that he can't handle this anymore. Big Ong tightens the grip on his blade, saying that he understands, but someone needs to do it. He swings, cutting Jiam's head off. Back at the academy, we see Samyong in disbelief, saying he can't believe it, as Big Ong has his sword and Jiam's head both laying on the floor. He asks him how this is, saying that he didn't think he'd believe him if he only brought the swords, but he brought his head as well, and asked if they should discuss his new duties as a senior instructor. The next day in the academy, we hear a professor saying this is bullshit. He was the shame of the academy until a few days ago, but now he's a senior instructor, asking what's going on. This is the fist instructor, named Yo Woonjin. The archery instructor, Bayuk, asks Daeyoung if he really raided the demonic night stronghold on his own. Daeyoung says that he went to go check it out this morning, and he found the corpses of the bandits, as well as Jiam where Big Ong said they would be. He doesn't know how, but everyone other than Jiam had their throats sliced with just a single attack. They say this is bullshit, as he is an instructor for spears, and there's no way he was hiding sword techniques, and that's just unbelievable. Daeyoung asks if they're trying to tell him that his eyes were deceiving him, and they should go check for themselves. Samyong, though, says this is enough, asking what they are all doing, and they apologize to him. Why is bro trying to act dignified when he has two chins? Absolutely crazy. But he says it doesn't make sense, no matter how much he thinks about it. Jiam is at least a peak realm martial master. He met him himself and confirmed it when he was relaying an order from the Orthodox Alliance to him. But for Big Ong to kill him in just one night, along with all of his subordinates, that's something that even he can't do as a fellow peak realm martial master. He thinks that maybe Beck helped him, but says that old man isn't that skilled, and he needs to look into it further. He then tells Daeyoung that he needs to get in touch with the Ghost Shadow Manor tomorrow. The Ghost Shadow Manor is one of the biggest assassin organizations of Murim. They are known for doing anything as long as they are paid accordingly. Samyong continues to tell them to put in a request to find out everything they can about Big Ong, even what he does on a daily basis. They say they understand, but they're still concerned if he's really going to be promoted to a senior instructor. He tells Woonjin not to be worried, as he has an idea. Woonjin asks what it is. Samyong tells him that it is the list of disciples he will be in charge of once he is promoted. Woonjin says he understands now, and laughs, saying he would expect nothing less of him, and he sure did come up with a brilliant idea. Samyong says he put his position to good use. Woonjin says this means he might give up before the Ghost Shadow Manor even gets anything on him. Samyong says that's only possible since he has so little experience. Then they ask if he gave the same list to Big Ong. Daeung says he actually handed it to him right before this meeting, and they ask what he said about it. Daeung says he wouldn't know, even if he took a look at it, so he just smiled and said he understood. But Big Ong says these old dudes are all idiots, and they're doing everything he expected. He regressed to this time and place for a reason. After learning about Newsarun's power of time regression, now we know that's the eyeball in the sky, he wondered to himself what he should do to prepare for the invasion. The enemy is an army that has already conquered countless dimensions. Only being one person has its limits. There are many things he can do, but in the end, the best way would be for him to raise an army. Not some weaklings like the ones that died before, but a powerful army that has learned all kinds of martial arts and magic. As he stands before his new classroom, he says that these guys have been marked as troublemakers among the first-year disciples. Although some are very talented, their personalities get in the way. But there are some who are also just completely untalented or were neglected because they don't come from prestigious families. He assumes that they didn't want to deal with him, and thought he couldn't either. But they never would have imagined that the two heroes who did the best during the invasion would be here. One was a martial master who reached the evolutionary realm in his late 20s, the last hope of Murim that led the alliance against the demons, the Heavenly Sword Alliance leader. The other was a talented archer who led a squad specialized for assassination and patrolling, and assassinated the most demons on his own, the demon-slaying divine archer. Big Ong tells the students it's nice to meet them all. Starting today, he's their instructor. It's time for him to get a head start on helping these two heroes. Later, we see a student getting a hit in the stomach. He starts spitting up. While he's on his knees, the other student walks over, saying that their external arts training isn't over yet, telling him to get up. This is Gulk Bauk, a first year in the Camellia class, and second son of the Dragon Tiger Escort Agency. The kid getting his shit rocked is also in the Camellia class, and the eldest son of the One-Star Sword Clan, Tan Lijung. Bauk asks what's wrong with him, as someone's going to think he's bullying him, and that he should be thankful that he's showing a weakling like him his Dragon Tiger Mountain splitting fist arts. Lijung goes to talk about his martial arts with his family, and Bauk laughs at him, asking if he really thinks they're worth anything, and that those martial arts are shitty, and he couldn't even use them against him. Lijung starts to get pissed, and Bauk leans down close, telling him to stop clenching his fist. If not, they'll have another duel. It turns out Lijung lost the last one. Lijung realizes he can't win and says no, and another student enters, saying that's enough. The feud will soon commence, so he should stop causing unnecessary commotions. Also a first year of the Camellia class, and he's the second son of the destructive Sword Yun clan, named Yun Wookiyoung. Bauk sighs, but agrees, telling him to consider himself lucky. Lijung looks up, thanking him, and Wookiyoung turns, looking back at him before not saying anything and walking away. And Lijung can't help but think that he sees him as pathetic. An instructor then enters the room, calling out to the cadets, and Bauk asks what he needs. He says sorry that this is sudden, but Samyeong just let him know that they will not be in the Camellia class anymore. Instead, they will all be transferred to a newly created class, and that is none other than Big Ong's. Back to the class now, the students all wonder what's going on, and Bauk yells, telling them to stop messing around already. It's annoying enough that they have to suddenly move classes, but now they are under this half-assed instructor, and there's no way he'll listen to such a shitty order. Big Ong says that his choice of words while talking with the head instructor is very insolent. Bauk tells him to fuck off, and he doesn't know what bullshit he pulled to become a senior instructor, but he has no plans of learning from somebody who couldn't even use internal arts until recently. Big Ong smirks and nods his head before casting a magic circle on his hands, and he teleports in with a blink, saying that the Academy rules, Article 3, Clause 5, grant him permission to do this. He stomps on Bauk's feet before he can even react, causing him to scream out in pain and fall down to his knees. Big Ong says if a cadet shows bad behavior, he's allowed to punish them with a goal of guidance. Bauk grits his teeth and prepares one of his martial arts, and charges in, saying that he's going to make him regret that. It is his long-ass name, Splitting Fist Arts. Big Ong says swearing and violence towards his superior, and also using internal arts during class without permission, are already bad, but there's another thing that's worse of all. As he gets behind him once more, he hits him straight in the gut, causing him to start to spit up and lose his breath. Big Ong says that his martial arts ability is pathetic. He starts slapping him all over, and of course he's holding back not to actually kill this guy. And then, while he's busy getting the barrage, Big Ong sweeps out his leg, causing him to fall over on his side, losing his balance. He's now laying on the floor looking up, and Big Ong calls out to him, telling him to stand back up, as his guidance isn't over yet. Everyone just wonders how this can happen, as this is Bo-ok, who is ranked at the top among the new students in external arts training, and he can't believe he's losing so one-sidedly, as if he's a child. Bo-ok then starts digging back up, and Big Ong knees him in the face. The other cadets are watching. As Bo-ok's coughing up, Big Ong walks over, saying that this is a horrible way to act from the very first class, but it's too bad for him that it is the role of the teacher to hold back their tears and educate those who need it. He starts to swing in, and Bo-ok puts his hands up out of fear, but somebody else stretches out, grabbing his hand, and it's none other than Wook-young, who says that this is a little excessive against a cadet, and Big Ong says that it's about time that he finally moved, and that this is the Heavenly Sword Alliance leader in the future, one of the two heroes in the class. We learn more about Wook-young. His family is one of the most prestigious clans in the Central Plains. From a young age, he was recognized within the clan as a martial arts genius, and even among the new students of Dragonspring Academy, he displayed overwhelming skill, and his talent was far beyond what the Dragonspring Academy could contain. At the mere age of 20, he achieved the feat of becoming the youngest in the history to become a Supreme Peak Martial Master, and was ranked among the top 10 martial masters of the Orthodox Alliance. Originally, he should have had a brilliant life, revered as one of the absolute martial masters of the Central Plains, and admired by all. But that is not how it went down, as we see him looking up in horror when the demons all invaded from the rift. From the early stages of the demon invasion, he participated in more battles than anyone else. But soon, his family clan became the target of concentrated attacks from the demons, and was annihilated. All members of the clan except for him were brutally slaughtered. Even so, he did not collapse in despair or grief like others. He went around the lands, helping others, fighting countless battles with demons, and gathering survivors in form of an allied force. Even in such a hopeless situation where everything was against them, he led the remaining martial artists in a desperate final resistance, and Big Ong still remembers it clearly. He always charged to the front lines of the battlefield, and whenever he unleashed his dazzling sword energy, even massive demonic beasts that seemed to cover the sky were cut down in an instant. Undoubtedly, he was the hero and final hope of the Central Plains. Although, that's not the case at the moment. He's just another snobby brat from a prestigious clan. Back to when he is holding Big Ong's wrist, Big Ong flicks his hand, causing him to let go. Wook-young says this is quite amusing. Big Ong asks why. And if he's surprised that the assistant instructor who couldn't use internal energy until recently suddenly got so strong. Wook-young says that sure is unexpected, but the fact that all he can do with that newly acquired power is to show off in front of a cadet is pretty pathetic, asking if that's also because of those so-called fated encounters. Big Ong says he sure is sharp, wondering why he's curious, and if he obediently follows his training from now on, he might just tell him. Wook-young says that won't be necessary, as he doesn't know what kind of trick he pulled to change the class rosters like this, but he will be submitting a formal complaint to the academy about the person responsible. He has no interest in learning from someone who's puffed up with arrogance from a lucky stroke of fortune. As the other students seem to think the same thing, and they walk away, Big Ong watches. As 4 of them are now leaving, Bo-ok takes one look back, and so does a woman, but Lijung is just confused on what to do. Big Ong starts laughing, saying that he can't believe he's running his mouth when he thinks he's something special, and if he really thinks there's nothing to learn from him, and that in just 10 days of training, as he puts his hand around Lijung, he says that this guy here could be strong enough to beat him. Lijung starts to get scared, and Wook-young stops moving, asking what the hell he just said. Big Ong says he'll repeat it as much as he needs. After just 1 week of his training, this pathetic weakling, the one he considers beneath a bug, will be able to show him that he's just a frog in a well. Lijung asks what the hell he's doing, and asks if he's insane. Big Ong covers his mouth, and Wook-young turns around, glaring at him, asking if he's willing to take responsibility for those words. Big Ong says of course, and they should make a bet, and 10 days they will face off in an official spar. And if he wins, he'll follow his training without another word, and if Wook-young wins, he can do whatever he wants, and make him leave the academy, apologize, or pretty much anything. Wook-young laughs, saying there's nothing he wants from him. However, he better be prepared for the match that happens 1 week from now. As they leave, Big Ong and Lai Jung watch before Lai Jung freaks out. Big Ong says that low-key scared him a bit, and Lai Jung turns back towards him, and also starts tweaking even more. Big Ong says he's way too noisy. Lai Jung starts crying, asking him what he just did, and Big Ong says that he sure is overflowing with energy right now, and that if he lets go, he'll explain the situation. Lai Jung says that he can't beat Wookie Young, wondering if he's out of his mind, wondering what he did to deserve this. Big Ong slaps him, telling him to let go, and that the class is cancelled today, and all cadets are dismissed. The schedule for the next class will be sent to them individually by tomorrow. They wonder what the hell is going on, and Lai Jung lays there, saying that he's doomed. Big Ong sighs, saying that he needs to win, wondering what he's assuming he'll lose. Lai Jung sighs, saying that during his first public spar, he lost to Baok, and it was very badly. Since then, he's tormented him every day, and surely he knows that even that monster Baok was defeated without being able to land even a single blow on Wookie Young. Big Ong says that Wookie Young sure is something else. Even without the backing of his family's clan, his martial arts truly is one of a kind. Lai Jung says that if he already knew that, then why? Big Ong laughs, telling him not to worry, and he points his hand forward, saying that Lai Jung is stronger than him. As we finally learn that Lai Jung is actually the second hero, and was the demon-slaying divine archer. Lai Jung then screams no, saying that even if there's nothing they can really do about their class suddenly changing, there's no reason for him to have to fight in a public duel with Wookie Young. Big Ong says he still doesn't understand the situation. He has to win at the duel for him to prove his abilities for everybody. Lai Jung tells him that's his problem, wondering what he earns from getting swept up into this. Big Ong smiles, saying he'll have revenge. Lai Jung asks what he means, and Big Ong says he always got beat up by that big bastard, and Lai Jung asks how he knows. Big Ong asks how it felt when he beat up that dipshit in front of him. He wonders if he was excited and felt refreshed, and if he felt relieved, or maybe he got so mad that he couldn't get revenge himself. And he even said that Baok can't touch a hair on Wookie Young's head, but what if he becomes so strong he can beat Wookie Young? Then even somebody like him would easily be able to get his revenge with his bare hands. And he asks him to think about it, saying that would be a great present for the current him. Lai Jung hesitates for a second and says that if he can really become strong like he says, then he'll do it, and Big Ong says of course. But Lai Jung tells him this is unrelated to Baok. What he wants is to simply become stronger than he is now. Big Ong smiles, saying that they'll see if that's the case. Lai Jung then jumps to a fantasy blow-up doll, and Big Ong's watching from a roof, saying it's time to check Lai Jung's skill. He tells him to think that he's fighting Wookie Young, and wield his martial arts to their fullest. Lai Jung lets out a quick breath before dashing forward towards the dummy, hitting it straight on the head, before following up with an overhead attack, hitting it all over. Lai Jung starts to get tired, and Big Ong tells him to keep going, and he needs to go at full force. Lai Jung screams before he feels a very sharp pain in his chest, and his vision starts to get blurry. He falls to the ground and starts coughing, unable to get back up. Big Ong looks down at him, and thinks about it, saying that he's absolutely pathetic, saying that surely he knows what his problem is right now. Lai Jung says while carrying out the basic moves, for some reason, his internal energy keeps dispersing. At first, he thought he'd learned his clan's martial arts incorrectly, so he tried to confirm it several times, but there are no problems with his basic moves. Then he thought perhaps there was an issue with his Dan Tian or meridian points, so he had it checked out multiple times, but there was still nothing. He says that maybe he just lacks talent, or he has an unknown illness. Big Ong says it's not that, he just has his meridian points spread further than others. Lai Jung asks what he means, asking what that has to do with this. Big Ong asks if it's hard to understand. Like he said, he was born with his meridian points more spread out, and his mind meridian than most. Normally, it's considered a rare constitution that has more advantages than disadvantages. However, since he's still young and he lacks the internal energy, he's experiencing an issue. He must be aware that all martial arts must discharge their internal energy created in their dantians through their meridian points, but since he has wider meridians compared to others and mediocre amounts of internal energy, his energy's power doesn't focus properly. That is why his internal energy keeps dispersing. Lai Jung says this is his first time hearing of this, and Big Ong says that makes a lot of sense. We get a flashback to a lot of Big Ong's comrades dead on the floor, and even him being severely injured as he's looking up at none other than an older Lai Jung. Big Ong says it's all information he heard by coincidence. Now their roles are reversed in the present. Lie Jung wonders if there may be some more backstory to this, and Big Ong says that he's going to end the explanation here. Now that they know the problem, they can fix it. Lie Jung asks how they plan to do that, and Big Ong says it's very simple. Compared to other people, he lacks power because of his wide meridian points, which means he can resolve it by increasing the amount of internal energy he has. Since they can't increase his internal energy in a short period of time, there's only one method he can teach him now. He needs to keep gathering internal energy right until he starts his basic moves, and once he's gathered enough, he can follow through as he starts to dash. We see a lighted green aura following his blade, and he cleaves the dummy clean in two. Big Ong says that now he'll be able to display his true power. Lie Jung looks hella happy, and Big Ong looks proud too. Lie Jung starts asking if he saw that, as his energy really didn't disperse. Big Ong says he did, so he can now be at ease before it collapses. Lie Jung asked what he means by collapses. He never felt so energetic. But as he says this, he starts to fall backwards, and it all fades to black. Lie Jung starts to open his eyes and starts spitting up. He wonders why he collapsed. Big Ong then asks how he feels, and he says that he has no strength left in his body. Big Ong says that it's a minor side effect from channeling his full power for the first time, and that he's never properly used his mind meridians before. So his unadapted body was shocked, but it's nothing to worry too much about, as the side effects will naturally go away within a few months. Lie Jung sighs, saying that a few months isn't too bad, and then he realizes, asking if he's certain, saying the duel is in 1 week. Later that day in the training grounds, Big Ong is swinging a stick, while explaining that he is currently facing two problems. When he unleashes a technique with his stored energy, all the inner energy he's gathered up until that moment is consumed with a single strike. Then, as he said, his body can't withstand the recoil, and he collapses. However, his energy core is also too small for him to store his energy ahead of time, and he can't sustain it for long. If he does that, he wouldn't just collapse, he'd risk going into energy deviation. So that's absolutely forbidden. He says surely this is easy enough to understand. Lie Jung says that it is, and Lie Jung just wonders whether that has to do with the stick Big Ong is swinging. Big Ong tells him not to mind the small stuff and to think about it. Considering those things, he can only start storing energy after the duel begins. He asks how long it took for him to gather his energy earlier. He said it was around 7 minutes. Big Ong then asks how he plans to hold off Wookieung for that amount of time. Lie Jung says he has no idea, asking what he should do. Big Ong says there's only one answer. He has to dodge like hell until he's gathered it all. He leaps forward and swings down, which Lie Jung sidesteps. Lie Jung panics and asks him what he thinks he's doing. Big Ong tells him to focus and start gathering his energy and not to take his eyes off of his opponent. Big Ong then casts illusion. As there are now two weapons flying towards him, he's confused. One of them hits him in the head, and we hear him yell out in pain. Big Ong says he's whining even though he didn't use any inner energy, and that he needs to get up as they're continuing. Lie Jung asks how this is training, and Big Ong says of course it is, as it's training to dodge. Lie Jung just wonders what kind of messed up training this is. Big Ong asks what he's talking about, and if he thinks he's really doing this just to bully him. Lie Jung explains why he's weak and how to fix it. He even demonstrated it clearly, and that he'll guarantee this. Right now, this is the only way he can even give Wookieung a scratch a week from now. Yes, the training is going to be painful and hard, but he wonders if it's harder than the times he was humiliated by Bauk and Wookieung. Or if he's really going to throw away this perfect chance to prove himself to all the others who treat him like trash. He recalls how Wookieung won't even talk to him and ties the grip on his blade, saying that he's sorry, and he would like to continue the dodge training, and he can endure a whole day if he must. Big Ong asks what the hell he's talking about, as he'll be doing this non-stop for the entire remaining week. Lie Jung then raises his hand, saying that he didn't mean it, and Big Ong charges in as Lie Jung screams, saying to wait. We then jump a whole week later, as it's now the day of the duel, and we see everybody ready to watch. Tons of the cadets are up top getting a nice view, and Wookieung stands on the other side of the arena, staring at Lie Jung who looks awful. Some of the students wonder how long Lie Jung will last, and one of them says that he's going to get bodied in a single move. The woman cadet asks if he prepared a countermeasure, and the hentai protagonist says that he saw him a few times passing by, and that he'd spent the whole week getting smacked around with a stick by Big Ong. That was it. Bauk says that he sure is an idiot, and if he's trash, he should just stay quiet in a corner. There's no way that the wimp who grovels in front of him is going to beat Wook-young, and that he fell for that scammer's lies and dug his own grave. Wook-young calls out to Big Ong, saying that he said he didn't want anything earlier, but under these circumstances, he'd like to make a condition of his own. Big Ong says sure, asking what it is, and Wook-young says if he wins, he must leave the academy on his own, and he never wants to waste time like this again. Big Ong says deal, and he swears on his name. And that he's aware of what happens when he loses too, that he must attend his classes without complaint. Wook-young says he remembers, and Big Ong smiles, saying this is good, though he's mistaken about something. The person he should be focusing on right now isn't him, but rather Lijung, who's standing across from him in the arena, as Lijung's holding his sword, ready to fight. Wook-young looks at him for a second before Big Ong claps his hands, saying it's time to get started. Victory will be determined when one side either forfeits, loses consciousness, or drops their weapon. Additionally, any lethal or life-threatening strikes are strictly forbidden, and in these cases, the judge will make the final call and tells them to get ready, as it's now time to start the duel. Lijung exhales and tightens the grip on his sword. In an instant, he feels an attack, and his arm soars through the air. He looks up, confused. As his vision starts to fade black, he's looking at his hand before he snaps out of it, and Wook-young tells him to surrender. Lijung looks down, seeing both of his hands, saying that it's fine, and Wook-young tells him that he's a fool, asking if he agreed to fight him when he's this shaken after just a bit of murderous intent. Lijung asks if that's really all it was, saying if that's the case, he really could, and he starts to get scared, saying he can't do this. People consider this guy the best of the best in the academy, and there's no way that someone could defeat him with just a single week's worth of training. Big Ong calls out to him, causing him to instantly snap out of it, and he looks over, seeing him smiling super kindly as he's giving him some very warm words of encouragement. Realizing that he has no choice but to fight, he laughs nervously. He calms himself down, saying he has to remind himself that what he wants is to become stronger than he is now. That day a week ago, he's already proved that he's much stronger than he was before. Wook-young calls him an idiot, saying that he gave him a chance to get out of this fight uninjured. He crouches down into his stance before dashing off the ground, soaring in the air over Lijung, saying that he brought this upon himself. He strikes down, but Lijung actually blocks the attack. Wook-young is surprised he reacted in time, and then Lijung deflects his sword and distances himself, saying that it could have been bad, as the ki he had collected was almost dispersed. Wook-young then raises his sword behind him, using one of the Supreme Dragon Heaven severing sword techniques, specifically the first one called Berserk Dragon's Rage Torrent. As it flies in towards Lijung, he narrowly dodges, and it grazes his cheek. He says the sword ki is really powerful, but he's starting to have a strange feeling. It feels like the attack is way easier to dodge than he expected it would be, as he's actually maneuvering between them all. The other cadets watch, and High Ki all look really surprised that he's able to do this. Wook-young says that it seems like he really did learn something. It is now time for the third technique, and if you recall, it's very similar to the illusion that Big Ong was casting, as he was imitating this, the Twin Dragon Fang Severance. Lijung also realizes it, saying this is the same technique that the instructor used. He leaps up off the ground, soaring over the attack, looking down at Wook-young. Wook-young is just caught off guard, and when Lijung catches himself on the other side of the arena, he looks up to see Wook-young charge and full of rage. He swings towards his head, to which he avoids, then the stomach, which gets avoided, and then back one more time for the head. Wook-young says that he's strong, fast, and precise, and wouldn't expect any less from the best swordsman clan in the Central Plains. However, that doesn't mean he can't dodge them. He doesn't understand why, but this sword technique is not a foreign thing to him anymore. It is the exact one that Big Ong has been using for the entire last week. As he dodges another attack, Wook-young just stares in disbelief and then distances himself, wondering what is going on. The other students are also confused, asking if this is really happening, saying that maybe this is an act. But they say that Wook-young wouldn't do that. Wook-young, starting to doubt himself, looks down at his hands and realizes he made a mistake. He retightens the grip on his sword, saying that he apologizes for calling him an idiot, and he has to admit that he's learned a lot within the last week. He doesn't know how he knows his sword technique. As he starts to coat his sword in ki, Lie Jung doesn't take his eyes off of it, as a giant tornado starts to swirl above his blade. This is the Fierce Dragon Annihilation technique, and Wook-young says that if he can dodge this one too, he will admit defeat. The other cadets closest to him are struggling to stand up, and Bo-ok wonders what the hell he's looking at, saying that he's one hell of a crazy bastard. But he's not talking about Wook-young, as he's talking about Lie Jung, because he's confidently walking forward into the attack, with his sword now glowing. It jumps back to the day before the duel. We see Lie Jung panting, and Big-ong says he's been dodging well, and this might be doable now. Lie Jung pants, asking if this will really allow him to dodge all of Wook-young's attacks. Big-ong says that it won't. Wook-young is not an idiot. He must be underestimating him right now, but if he continuously dodges his strikes, he'll come up with countermeasures, and if he survives till the end, he'll most likely use one of his abilities. It's the biggest scale sword art that Wook-young can currently use, and that's exactly what's going on. Big-ong warns him that it quite literally makes it seem like a fierce dragon is materialized, and is a martial art that creates massive sword ki. He'll let him know in advance, but he can forget trying to dodge it. It's pointless trying to jump or move back to dodge. It'll grow instantaneously and swallow the entire stadium. Lie Jung asks how he's meant to do it. He says that's basically unbeatable. Big-ong tells him to listen up. There's nothing in this world that is unbeatable. A storm of sword ki working together to endlessly whirlpool around in all directions is just what it looks like. It's not a perfect martial art. In the first place, the attack is a martial art designed to annihilate the majority of the enemies who get taken aback by its incredible force, trying to run away. Lie Jung asks if that's what he means, and Big-ong smiles, saying yes. The only way out is that he must keep going forward. Lie Jung starts doing exactly that, walking through the attacks, and it's even making him bleed, but he continuously walks forward. His eyes are full of complete determination. Wook-young is completely caught off guard, and Big-ong says that if it's Wook-young, he'll try to respond immediately after realizing his attack was seen through. As he swings down directly toward Lie Jung dodges to the side, and Big-ong's words continue. It'll simply be a response in a situation where he's surprised due to what happened, and that will be his moment. He can use his pent-up anger that he's been suppressing for so long and land a blow directly on that arrogant bastard. Wook-young starts to sweat nervously and goes to block the attack. As their swords collide, it completely shatters Wook-young's sword. As the attack follows through, and Wook-young watches the pieces of his sword fly through the air in front of him, he's in disbelief. So are all the other cadets, and Bo-ok is shaking with anger. Lie Jung's sword is completely fine, and Wook-young's is broken into pieces. It turns out that Lie Jung's sword aura was more than enough for him to do this. Lie Jung starts to pant, and his knees go shaky as he falls backward onto the floor. He starts panting, and the students wonder why he suddenly collapsed, and if Wook-young did something. Wook-young, though, looks down at his blade, realizing that he told him if he made it through this, he would admit defeat. He says that he lost, but before the rest can hear him, Big-ong says that the fight is now over, and that the result is a draw. Wook-young tries to say that he lost, but Big-ong says that's what it looks like when he's completely overwhelmed. One side's weapon is broken, but the other side is in no condition to continue fighting. As the referee of the duel, he declares it a draw. And it makes sense. Big-ong says the promise made beforehand is invalid, and now he wants everybody to give a round of applause for them. Wook-young asks what the hell he's trying to do. Big-ong turns, and Wook-young says that his goal is to get him to participate in class, or if he wanted to hurt his pride with such a petty method. Big-ong tells him to think whatever he wants, as long as that petty pride of his stays intact. He shouldn't have to force himself onto someone who doesn't want to learn what he's teaching, and he doesn't need to whine. He just needs to choose. Right now, Lie Jung is completely unconscious. At the very least, he should stop sitting here sulking, because Lie Jung chose to fight him by his own will. Lie Jung apologizes, saying that in the end he could not win. But Big-ong stretches his hand out towards him, lifting him up. He asks Lie Jung how it is, as he's looking up, seeing all the students go absolutely crazy over their duel. So many people are cheering him on, even though before that they were doing nothing but shit talk him. Even Baok doesn't know what to say. Big Ong asks if it feels thrilling or not. Lee Jung looks up for a second and says that it does. Sometime later, the next day, Big Ong's walking to the classroom, and he opens the door to see that there's actually a lot of students already sitting inside, waiting for him, which is surprising. Lee Jung smiles at him, and Big Ong notices Wook-young sitting there too, saying that it's time to start their first class. It jumps to Samyung, slamming his hand on the desk, saying that 1 minute they're cheering him on and the next they're turning their backs. This is too much, wondering how it came to this. He says that he trusted Daeyoung and left things in his hands, and he wonders what the meaning of this is. The whole point was they get him to leave voluntarily, so why are all the cadets willingly following him around instead? Especially Lemon and Wook-young. Both cadets now adamantly insist on continuing their training under him. Woonjin suggests that they force them to switch classes again like last time. Daeyoung says they've gone so far as to threaten withdrawal from the academy, reporting it. They all agree they never should have entrusted a genius like Wook-young to some greenhorn, and this is directly tied to the academy's reputation, meaning it's a critical matter. Samyung wonders how he's meant to take responsibility for this, and realizes they're trying to pin it on him, and that they are nothing but parasites desperate to curry Wook-young's favor. And if they're really saying he lost to some bottom-rank one-star Sword Clan member, they say technically he withdrew, but according to the cadets who watched it, it was essentially a loss. Samyung says they're mistaken, because Wook-young is one of the greatest prodigies ever amongst his clan. But the more he understands about Big Ong, the less he truly understands, and he can't leave him unchecked any longer. He then says to think about it for a minute, wondering if they still have not heard back from the Ghost Shadow Manor. Daeyoung says not, since they've decided to review the request, and Samyung asks why a mere mercenary group is trying to act high and mighty. One of the members then says he better be careful with his next words. This scares him, and they start freaking out asking who's there. He appears directly behind Samyung, saying that is surely a stupid question. Samyung wonders what's going on. He's a peak realm martial master, yet he didn't sense him at all. The guy says he already said who he was a minute ago. 2 more men appear, saying they're here to fulfill his request, and they want to know more about Big Ong. This is the most elite mercenary group in Jonghu, the Ghost Shadow Manor. We see them looking at a drawing of him, and they wonder why they're throwing so much to investigate a rookie instructor. Some bald guy says that for a place with such a trash reputation, they sure do seem to have a lot of money. Number 1 says that it just goes to show that they're corrupt, but it's not any of their business. Number 7 says that these orthodox sect types crack him up. They're always pretending to be virtuous, and now they're getting a background check on their subordinate. Number 5, who was the bald guy, says that they're not any better, scavenging off such pathetic requests for money. Number 1 calls out to him, asking if he's forgotten their mission, because until they find and serve him, they're vowed to endure any dirty and despicable work. Number 5 apologizes, saying that he misspoke. Number 1 says it's fine, they just need to focus on their mission, and they should also investigate Beck, the one who raised him since childhood. Number 7 asks if they think the rumor about him having a fated encounter is true. Number 1 says that they shouldn't take such nonsense seriously, but they did say he was unable to use inner energy and then overnight became a martial master. If that's not due to a fated encounter, then what else could it be? Number 1 says he may have an unknown backer. Number 7 says that makes sense, but Number 1 continues saying that maybe he infiltrated this place after being planted by some hostile faction with a shady objective. That's probably what the clients suspect, which is why they hired them, meaning he may be far more dangerous than they expected. Number 1 tells them not to let the target catch wind of them, to be cautious. They start to put on their masks, telling him that's a pretty funny joke, because no matter how strong he is, there's no way he could detect their stealth techniques. He agrees, saying it's time to begin. Later in the day, we see him standing with Beck. Beck says he's been hearing a lot more about him around the academy lately, and that everything they said surprised him, asking if he's sure he'll be alright, as it looks like people are really starting to move against him. Big Ong says that jealousy and envy always follow the path heroes walk, and there's nothing to worry about, as he's juggling a rock in his hand. Beck says the fated encounter must have been truly extraordinary, saying that he never would have thought he'd changed this much. And that it probably all started back with a duel, but he was honestly stunned. He thinks he burnt him a bit too much. Big Ong laughs awkwardly, and Beck says that if he had lost that duel, it would have been a disaster. Samyung was clearly trying to get rid of him. Big Ong says truth be told him he did get kicked out. Before he turned back time, he couldn't use magic or anything, and was brutally defeated in his duel. He was stripped of his position and demoted to menial labor, and eventually, unable to endure the shame, he ran away from the academy. He wandered aimlessly, with no way to make a living, and he ended up becoming an escort warrior for an agency. Even though he still couldn't use inner energy, he poured his blood, sweat, and tears into training his physical techniques in spear fighting. After surviving countless missions and attacks from unorthodox sects and bandits, he became a first-rank escort warrior after a few years. He spent over 10 years this way, and he'd been to every corner of the Central Plains, and built a wide network of contacts and information. He stopped by the academy for old time's sake to see Beck, and on that very night of that day is when the rifts opened up and the demons poured out of them. He gets pissed thinking about it and throws a rock into a bush. Beck asks why he would suddenly do that, and Big Ong says that he saw an ugly frog and couldn't help himself. Beck asks why he would harm a poor frog, and Big Ong laughs, asking if he's forgotten how he caught and fed him frogs as medicine when he was little. As they walk away from the bushes, number 7 and 5 stand up, and 7 holds onto his head. 5 asks if he's okay, and 7 says he can't believe that bastard threw a rock at him, and wonders if they've been discovered. 5 says that he just got lucky, because he definitely wouldn't have just walked away from them, asking if he's seriously doubting their techniques over something this small. 7 says he's not, and 5 tells him good, he needs to have confidence in his skills, and since he's heading back to his quarters, they can continue surveilling him. Big Ong's looking out the window, and he says after securing the heroes, his first post-progression objective is now complete, and it might be finally time to bring her in. He's not even sure if he's right at this point, but he thinks he knows where she's at. There's a knock at the door, and Big Ong tells them to enter. Wook-young says that he's acting like he expected him, and Big Ong says he figured he'd be getting restless by now. Wook-young asks what's with that disgusting look on his face. Big Ong asks what brings the young master of the destructive sword clan to such a humble place. Wook-young looks down at him, and we see Big Ong is actually laying in his bed now. Wook-young sighs, saying that he wants to know more about the duel before with Lijung. He was able to sloppily respond to all of his basic moves of his family sword technique. At first, he thought they were simply the results of 1 week training, but thinking back, those were movements that went beyond momentary responses. It was as if he knew all of the movements and pathways of his sword technique. Big Ong smirks, and Wook-young says the one who taught him the sword paths of his technique could only have been one person, and it was Big Ong, asking how an outsider knows the destructive sword clan's martial arts in such detail. Big Ong laughs, asking who knows. He says that it's considered the greatest swords clan for a reason right now, and it's pretty famous amongst martial artists. Wook-young tells him to stop messing around. That wasn't a level of superficial knowledge, and there's no way he wouldn't be able to distinguish that. Big Ong says that of course he should have noticed that, and if he hadn't, he would have been a bit disappointed. Wook-young tells him to stop trying to move past, but Big Ong sits up, telling him to stop instead. He tells him to be more honest if he wants to be his disciple, but that's not what he's truly curious about. He came to check whether he also knew the flaws of his sword that he also felt. It was perfected hundreds of years ago and has been passed down through the clan as a unique swordsmanship. The Supreme Dragon Heaven Severing Sword currently praises the greatest sword arts, having incredible destructive power, ever-changing sword paths, and no gaps. But ever since he was young, he grew up wielding the swordsmanship, and with his outstanding wisdom, he realized something. Their sword technique is not an unbeatable martial art, but as the heir of the great destructive sword clan, he could not acknowledge it. Wook-young gets annoyed, asking if he's looking down on his clan's martial arts. Big Ong tells him to think as he wants, but he wants to say this: in the near future there will come a day when those things that martial artists revere so much, tradition, honor, nobility, and reputation, all become meaningless. He should only think of one thing: getting stronger than he is now, and push anything that gets in the way of that to the side without hesitation, but they'll have time to talk about this in more detail later. Until then, he should just follow his instincts. Wook-young sits there for a second and says that even if he says that, why is he suddenly grabbing a wooden pillow? Big Ong tells him it's nothing much, and not to worry about it, as there's an annoying frog outside. Then it jumps to all three of them overlooking a room, saying that from what he can tell, Beck is just a normal medic who worked in Gamsu, but 5 years ago, he became responsible for this pavilion which treats patients, and he came to the Dragon Spring Academy. While capable as a medic, he barely learned martial arts, and doesn't have another background. Number 1 says they investigated him since he's close to Big Ong, but he really is just a normal physician. However, his past seems a little artificial. He then wonders about something, asking number 7 why he looks like shit. Number 5 tries to explain it for him, and it turns out that it was time and time after again that he was constantly hit by something from Big Ong. Number 1 asks if they're sure they weren't found out. Number 5 says that he had no killing intent towards them at all, but number 7 says no matter how much he thinks of it, he definitely thinks they were found out. He says, "Look at my damn face." Number 1 tells him to stop doubting his clan's mind technique, and Big Ong must have a bad habit of throwing things around, and he's experienced worse things, and he shouldn't do it longer. Poor dude. A little later, number 7 tells number 5 that he's going to tell him this in advance, that if something comes flying his way again, he won't hold back, and he will behead Big Ong. Number 5 says he gets how he feels, but to calm down. They've moved away from the accommodations so these accidents won't keep happening, as they are now much further away. Number 7 says who knows if that crazy bastard might wake up and subtly decide to practice archery. Number 5 hears footsteps, telling him to shut up as somebody's coming, and we see it's Big Ong. He walks over to the bushes they are directly in, saying that he has to piss real bad, and that he must have drunk too much tea, as he starts pulling out his soldier. Number 7 says there's no way, until he starts to get her kellied on. Number 5 says what in the ditty is going on here, and 7 screams, asking him what the hell he's doing, before realizing he made a mistake, as Big Ong is holding a teapot. Big Ong asks if he wants a cup, and number 7 is in disbelief and starts crying, saying that he knew all along and purposely messed with him. He then pulls out his Assassin's Creed blade and leaps at him, saying he's gonna kill him. He rears back his fist, and Big Ong casts a barrier, shattering his hidden dagger, leaving him utterly speechless. He then palms his head like a basketball, slamming him into the pavement, saying it's nice to meet the ghost Shadow Manor. Number 7 looks like there's not a thought behind his eyes anymore, and 5 jumps up, screaming out his name. Big Ong says that's what he gets for digging into other people's business, and asks if he would like some tea. Number 5 gets pissed, grabbing onto his blade, and number 1 tells him to stand down. 5 is immediately surprised, as number 1 lands behind Big Ong. He greets him, saying that he didn't think he'd actually discovered him already. Big Ong says that he knows they've been tailing him, and he must be the leader of these frogs, though he wonders if it's really okay to reveal his identity in front of his surveillance target like this. Number 1 says that's a foolish question. If he kills him right now, what trouble could it cause? Big Ong asks if he's really fine with that, and if he's not the least curious how he knows about all of him. Number 1 says that they'll find out soon enough, and he's going to start by slicing off his limbs one by one. He swings forward, launching multiple daggers as well towards Big Ong. Big Ong drops his teapot, and as they fly in, he smiles, raising his hand, and uses his mana, making them think it was barehanded. All of them hit, and the daggers break, and number 1 gets behind him, spinning for an attack. Big Ong raises his hand, blocking it, and says that he's not nearly fast enough. Number 1 is surprised, then goes for a follow-up strike, which Big Ong blocks again with his hands. He says though he lacks the overwhelming destructive power of Jiam, he's fast, precise, sharp, and deadly. Every technique is a fatal strike aimed at vital points. In particular, the density of energy in his sword is overwhelming, and no way a barrier will hold, and he can't keep parrying it with a mana blade. He says this is more like it, as he pushes him back with an attack. Number 1 distances himself, and number 5 is just confused. Number 1 says this is strange. It's hard to put his finger on it, but the power and style he's using are fundamentally different from the martial arts of the orthodox sects. There's no way he just stumbled upon this power, and it must be demonic arts. Big Ong asks if he's even seen demonic arts in person, and it's been years since they fell, asking what nonsense he's talking about. It has nothing to do with demonic arts, though he's right, as it's not typical martial arts either. Number 1 says he understands that he's not someone he can simply subdue, and he doesn't hold any personal grudge against him, but that he's going to take his life, as he's now going to give it 100%. He says that every single bit of this is for the sake of the Ghost Shadow Manor's mission. He vanishes off the ground, and Big Ong looks up, watching him bounce around the entire area using soul-destroying stride. Big Ong says that it's an exclusive movement technique, which after erasing all presence, throws the opponent into confusion with high-speed movement. Then in that moment of confusion, as Big Ong turns to swing, his arm gets sent flying by Number One's soul flash. Big Ong's arm now bleeding, Number One thinks the job is settled, but instead, it was only an illusion, as Big Ong teleports directly behind him. Number One turns, confused, before getting hit in the face, causing his face mask to explode, and he bounces off the ground to a wall. Number 5 yells out, and quickly runs over, and Number 1 asks what the hell he just did. Big Ong says he must take pride in his stealth skills, as we see him using search on his eyes. He says that he can see them as clear as day, and he wants to have a deeper conversation. He calls him the Ghost Shadow Manor Lord, rather, the Origin Sect leader. The Origin Sect is a mysterious sect, like a ghost in the Jianghu, never once appearing in any official events. It's unclear whether they are orthodox or unorthodox, and their true goals and sect are shrouded in secrecy. It is so much so that decades ago, when a massacre wiped out all direct blood relatives, including the leader, most of the Jianghu did not even notice. Only those born and raised in the Origin Sect, loyal to the end, knew the truth. Those who survived the tragedy emerged under the name Ghost Shadow Manor. They now gather and collect every piece of information across the Jianghu, and are a top-tier mercenary organization that handles all sorts of dirty and dangerous missions. However, all of that is for a single goal, the restoration of the fallen Origin Sect, and that's the mission they speak of. Number 1 says this is impossible, as the true history of their sect is a top-level secret, and has never once been leaked in decades. Big Ong says he wants to be blunt, do just 2 missions, and the 2 things he tasked him with, and he'll give him information regarding the thing he's been chasing this entire time. Number 1 asks how dare he spew such nonsense, as he spent 20 years scouring the entire Central Plains with only a sliver of hope for the sake of his mission, asking if he even understands what it is he's been searching for. Big Ong says it's the blood of the Origin Sect, specifically, a unique bloodline that can fully inherit the Origin Sect's martial arts, and that there's a strange birthmark on their left wrist. Number 1 says that's right, the core of their sect's restoration, the very reason they've wandered so long. But even within their group, only a select few know, so he asks Big Ong how he knows these things. Big Ong says that's all he's going to tell him, and to choose now, accept his request and get information, or waste the rest of his life tailing people. Alternatively, they could just continue what they were doing earlier. Number 1 thinks about it, Big Ong watches as he reaches for his blade, but only to sheath it. Number 1 says he'll accept the mission. However, if it turns out he deceived him, he will pay back with everything he's got. Big Ong smiles, saying that he wants to give them their first mission. It jumps some time later to elsewhere as we see some men dead on the floor, and we see a woman sitting on top of a man as he begs for her to stop. Her hand is right over his face, and he's panting, struggling to breathe, and looks extremely terrified. She looks down at him, saying that he is the vice leader of the Black Scorpion gang named Mok Vu, and after attacking this place with his subordinates a month ago, he killed all the men and raped the women. The women who survived commissioned her to make sure that she kills him. He starts to raise his hand, but realizes that he can't gather his internal energy, but he wonders why it's slowly fading away, saying this makes no sense. He says surely she's scared of what's to come, as he is the vice leader of the Black Scorpion gang. She says she already said that, calling him an idiot. She raises her sword into the air, and he realizes it's too late as she plunges it into his chest. He screams, and after he dies, she gets up off of him and lets out a sigh of relief. A bird then flies up and lands on her arm. We see a note tied to its leg, and she asks if this is the next commission. She starts reading it, and we learn it's none other than Big Ong. Back to the academy, one of the students is swinging as hard as he can, and Big Ong tells him to stop the bullshit and release the tension. He needs to spread his legs apart, and change his wrists slightly, and angle downwards. He tells him to do it 200 times in that position. The kid screams damn it, and Big Ong asks why he's being disrespectful, or if he's being sassy. The kid says to wait, and that before he listens to what he says, he points over to the side asking why he's not making him do anything, as we see Wook-young in the middle of the arena meditating. Big Ong says he's doing well on his own, and the kid asks what he's talking about as he's just standing there. Big Ong then hits him on the head, saying they're not on the same level, and he should just shut up and wield his sword with more effort. The kid does it anyways, saying this shit hurt. Big Ong glances back towards Wookie Young, saying this is good. He can't be bound to the original sword techniques, and he needs to go to the swordsmanship his senses are guiding him towards. That genius talent of his will help him reach a higher level. Lai Jung then approaches him, and Big Ong asks if he's completed his ki circulation. He says no, he kept getting worried, asking if he can really do as he ordered and circulate it. Big Ong says there's no other way to solve his issue other than accumulating enough internal energy, unless he was secretly hiding rare elixirs. Lai Jung says of course not, and Big Ong says aside from when he eats and sleeps, he has to keep doing it. Lai Jung says okay in a sad voice and walks away. Big Ong says he's sure he feels rushed, and he must be aware that the only reason he beat him in that duel is because of tricks. There's no helping it, it's not a problem that could be solved immediately, but he has a bigger issue to deal with. He starts thinking about it, saying it's been 10 days since he met with number 1, and if no contact comes, his plants will have a problem. He then hears Daeung call out to him, and Big Ong turns annoyed, saying that it's good to see him. Daeung says that he doesn't actually look pleased at all, asking why he's making a sour expression after seeing him. Big Ong says he's busy with his class, and he's bothering him. Daeung says my ass, he's only been wandering around since earlier. If it weren't for what he saw that day, he'd deal with him, and he tells him to go to the main hall immediately, as Samyeong wants to see him. Big Ong does so, and Samyeong says it's been a while, asking how it is. Big Ong smiles, saying that it's great. Being able to teach his cadets, who are truly outstanding talents, makes him feel the worth of being a senior instructor every day, and it's all thanks to him creating a class of outstanding cadets. Samyeong, annoyed, says that at least he knows that, and it's a relief, and he knows he's doing well, but as he knows, they are a martial arts academy underneath the Orthodox Alliance. Since he has become a senior instructor, even though he lacks the experience, the Alliance seems to have concerns. Big Ong asks if the Orthodox Alliance is really interested in a mere instructor like himself. Samyeong tells him to be respectful, as a woman enters the room. Big Ong recognizes her. Samyeong says he is sorry to say that the Orthodox Alliance has sent an inspector to support him. As it's the woman from earlier, she walks forward and greets him very respectfully, and introduces herself as Mei Sholin. She says that she has been dispatched by the Orthodox Alliance's inspection department. Big Ong is just staring at her, and then laughs, saying he apologizes. He was swept away by her beauty. Sholin laughs, thanking him for the compliment, and Samyeong says that she is a rising female master within the Alliance, and she's an incredible master who reached the peak realm at an unprecedented young age, so he should not act rashly, and do his best, and to not be discourteous towards her. She smiles, and Big Ong laughs, saying of course, but he knows exactly what's up. 10 days ago, he asked if they know the soul-taking celestial maiden. He says he doesn't understand why he's bringing up her name, but he does know her. She is a contract assassin who works by herself, with no affiliations or comrades. She's famous for having never failed a commission she accepted. Though he's never met her himself, her targets were found with their lives sucked out of them, and that she's apparently a really beautiful girl. He wonders if the mission is to kill her. Big Ong smiles, saying no, and that they should call her here to the academy. Number 1 asks what he's talking about, and Big Ong says to tell Samyeong that due to unforeseeable circumstances, he has to cancel the commission. He does so, and Samyeong asks what he means by cancel, and why he's saying this after all this time. Number 1 apologizes, saying that there's no helping it, as an urgent matter has come up, but he'll introduce him to someone who's a perfect fit for the job, and he'll pay the commission fee as well. Samyeong says that he could definitely do it, as he's contacted her a few times for missions, but he wonders why he would do such a thing, as she's merciless and thorough. No matter how strong he is, she'll find a way to kill him. He asks if he's really that worried about him, and Number 1 says if he dies before he tells him the info, he'll be the one in a bad spot. Big Ong says that's right. She is a very dangerous woman, which is why he needs her even more for his plan. Can't believe he called a hit on himself for some huzz. If you've watched till the end, comment Magneto to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.